Representative democracy can be a great governmental system, and it has propelled the United States of America to become the great beacon of freedom. Why? It allows the layperson to have a say in their governance, instead of by a system that is controlled by one person or a central party. However, an elected official like Tiffany Henyard is a good example of the dark side of this democracy. In this episode, we will explore her rise to power and the lessons that can be learned. You're listening to Logic and Reason.
My imperative is to bring peace and order to this world. I am about to fulfill that imperative.
Here in America, we have a representative democracy. The people choose governing officials through elections to deliberate and decide legislation. Our founding fathers were people of an elitist class, highly educated, wealthy, freemen, and landowners. Most of them were utterly opposed to a direct democracy, which they viewed as mob rule. They preferred a system where representatives, presumably wiser and better informed than the general populace, would determine policy for them. Our founding fathers did not trust the masses to make tough decisions needed to steer the country. When we see examples like George Santos of New York, who has been charged with federal crimes, including wire fraud, aggravated identity theft, and conspiracy to commit offenses against the United States, or former Atlanta City Attorney Shalitha Robinson, who's recently been sentenced to 7 years in prison for stealing $15 million in PPP funds. We might actually have to go into that in a different episode. We can start to see a trend forming. For some reason, we can't stop people like this from assuming positions of power. Catholic historian and writer John Dahlberg Acton once said, "Power tends to corrupt, and absolute power corrupts absolutely." There are a couple of theories that I have. Either we can't help but get lost in the sauce from a slick talker, or the temptations of power are just too great and can corrupt even the best of us. Either way, it seems individuals who pursue these positions of authority seem to possess a God complex. They wish to become gods on earth, commanding peasants to do their bidding, to be worshipped and praised simply for existing. It's about them. It is not about the people they serve. This brings us to Tiffany Henyard of Illinois. She is the latest example of why we need to do a better job of electing our representatives. We've become too lazy at times, falling in love with the next big button of smile that walks by. We don't stop to ask, where did this chick come from? Has she killed anybody? Tiffany Henyard grew up in Dolton, which is about 30 minutes from Chicago. After obtaining her bachelor's degree in business administration, she worked on the Put Illinois to Work initiative with then Governor Pat Quinn's office. She then went on to become a member of the Board of Trustees at Dolton from 2013 to 2021. It is at this point that we start to see some red flags. First, she brought forth complaints about the mayor at the time, who was Riley Rogers, for his use of funds, lack of transparency, and the crumbling infrastructure of Dolton. She also took advantage of a stroke that Rogers suffered earlier that year. The people are ready for a change, she said. Right now, people are just sad. They're looking for something to uplift them. That's what I bring, a passion, transparency, accountability. So I'm ready. I'm energetic, and you need that right now. During her campaign, Henyard gave out free gas to Dolton residents to sway their vote. She promised transparency, which is a direct stab at the allegations Rogers faced involving unethical and illegal actions in his office. Henyard was then elected as mayor of Dolton on April 6, 2021, earning 82% of the vote following the initial wave of Black Girl Magic. Once she assumed power, that's when things started to go downhill. In her first year as Dolton's mayor, she was involved in multiple controversies, including hiring an inspector who was a sex offender, spending taxpayer money without board approval, and using Dolton police officers as their own personal security.
Former Dolton Police Chief Robert Collins spoke to us from Florida, where he's taken a new job after being fired by Dolton Mayor Tiffany Henyard late last year. But Collins says he remains frustrated by what he experienced leading an undermanned, overworked police department, while Mayor Henyard demanded a large personal security detail.
Wrong is wrong, and there's a time to hold people responsible and accountable for their actions.
When questioned about her security detail, she justified her need for such security at an October 21 board meeting, saying, "I'm a single mom with a 2-year-old daughter." Taking advantage of another town's misfortune, Tiffany assumed the position of supervisor of Thornton Township on March 3rd, 2022, after the previous officer holder passed away. Oddly enough, she was not listed as the main contender during the trustee voting process. 10 minutes before the 60th day deadline, after saying no to 8 other candidates, somehow Tiffany was appointed by the trustees of that township, led by Joyce Washington. Just 3 months after assuming Thornton Township responsibilities, the people of Dolton demanded a recall election in light of disturbing news. Unfortunately, the recall was denied. Both recall referendums passed during election night, but the results were found invalid by judicial ruling. The 3-judge panel concluded that Dolton Village Board improperly drafted the referendum questions and ordered Cook County Clerk's office to not certify the results. Henyard said, "The people of Dolton elected me in a fair and free election." She also had some very interesting social media posts after the said event. At this point, we begin to see the board members of Thornton start to become suspicious of Henyard. In a township meeting in February 2023, Trustee Gonzalez requested to separate payroll from the general fund bill to look into where spending was going. She quickly dismissed him and denied this motion.
But there's no foundation in the state of Illinois moving like we moving and shaking groove like we doing. Right?
That's right. Henyard mixes her 2 taxpayer-funded jobs and charity work.
I think it's just about personal gain and trying to use it as more of a publicity type thing.
Chris Gonzalez is the last surviving critic of Henyard on the Thornton Township Board. He and other critics say public money has been used to fund Henyard's private charity. They say board members were asked to approve a $10,000 payment to the foundation in 2022, days before a much-publicized cancer walk from Dolton to Springfield. Thornton Township credit card records show taxpayers then footed the bill for more than $10,000 in hotel rooms along the route.
This is a Thornton Township credit card bill, yet their payment's going to a mayor's conference. Does that make any sense to you?
No, really doesn't. But unfortunately, this is kind of what we've seen going on, obviously, for a while now.
But what gained national news, however, was Tiffany's infamous May Las Vegas trip. She and her entourage traveled to Las Vegas to allegedly attend an economic development conference. There actually was an International Council of Shopping Centers conference going on during the same time period, which does connect retailers with communities for potential projects. However, it's unclear if they actually attended this conference. The entire trip cost taxpayers at least $26,000. Other charges included more than $8,000 for hotels, $600 at Roof Chris Steakhouse, and $3,700 on Henyard's round-trip flight. In addition, residents started to ask for credit card statements, which showed Dolton Village officials spending more than $24,000 on restaurants and over $100,000 on trips during the recent 12-month period. They've taken other trips to Austin, Portland, New York City, Atlanta, and Washington, D.C. in the past year. Henyard and her team stayed at the Four Seasons Hotel in Atlanta, billing taxpayers nearly $9,000. Township taxpayers fitted the bill for 5 first-class flights to New York and charged $13,000 at the Marriott Marquis Hotel in Times Square. Henyard and a different group of officials racked up $10,000 in bills to stay at Fairfield Hotel in Austin, according to these credit card records. For a person who's accused the last mayor of mismanaging funds, She somehow thinks it's a great idea to spend money on trips and fancy food, even though Dolton is in a state of financial hardship and has over $7 million in debt. Besides the infamous trip to Las Vegas, let's look at another trip that she took to Washington, D.C.
What we found are credit card records showing expenditures for the Washington trip, including $5,000 to the U.S. Conference of Mayors, plane tickets for herself and assistant Keith Freeman for $718 apiece, hotel rooms at the Washington Hilton for over $1,000 each, and a $629 rental car. Total cost to taxpayers, $9,167. But here's the catch. Those taxpayers don't live in Dolton, where Henyard is mayor.
The township residents are paying for her fund.
Indeed, the credit card used to pay for the mayor's conference is from Thornton Township, a completely different government body where Henyard also serves as supervisor.
There's no reason for anyone from a township to go to a mayor's conference. A mayor's conference is a mayor's conference for mayors.
Thornton Township trustee Chris Gonzalez says he's frustrated by the lack of transparency about the township's bills and credit cards.
So that's one of the reasons I vote no when we go through our board packets. It's like, some of this stuff, it's like you don't know exactly what it's for, and then when you ask a question, there's no answer.
If you're noticing a trend here, she doesn't operate by any rules. She has no problem using Thornton Township's funds in order to pay for Dolton activities, and vice versa. She's even been on record using Thornton's money in order to pay for technical equipment for Dolton employees. There certainly has been no discussion or any evidence, past or present, of any direct benefit from this trip or any other trip to the taxpayers of South Holland, said the village mayor, Don DeGraff. The township has not at any time in my 30 years of serving South Holland as mayor played a role in either attracting or incentivizing any new business to our community. Homewood Mayor Rich Holfield said he has attended the same shopping center conference in Las Vegas 4 times and always paid his own way. Henyard's way of doing business is not the way that we do business, Holland said. She's an embarrassment to local government. Now, would it be fair to say that she's the worst politician that I've ever seen? Of course not. She's not even the worst from the state of Illinois. The award for the worst official/employee may have to go to Rita, who was a city comptroller who misappropriated $54 million from the city of Dixon, Illinois back in 2011. At the time, the city of Dixon was no different than any other community around the country. Declining tax revenues, tardy payments from the state, rising healthcare costs, and infrastructure investments all added up to what would be considered the plausible reason for financial problems from the community, according to the then mayor, Jim Berkey. She was able to parlay the stolen cash to build a nationally renowned horse breeding empire, which, oddly enough, nobody found concerning considering she only made $80,000 from her day job. But getting back to Tiffany, throughout these scandals, she has continued to deny and dismiss the concerns of her residents. Henyard has compared herself to Rosa Parks, Martin Luther King.
This is going to be Black History Month, right? Y'all all say Martin Luther King had a dream, but guess what? I am the dream.
And to Jesus, and continue to not answer any of the tough questions, like property tax relief, something that kept appearing in the comment section at a recent Facebook Live event. The average salary of a township supervisor is around $30,000. Somehow, she bumped her Thornton Township pay by $60,000, making her total salary $224,000. This is in addition to the $46,000 that she's getting paid for being the mayor of Dolton. Now, don't fear. She made sure that the next supervisor of Thornton will only get paid $25,000 if she loses an election. She uses the community events, parties, and giveaways as smokescreens to distract from the misuse and fraud allegations, which she says is the works of the devil and hearsay. She tried to force the building of a mental health facility after residents voiced their concerns over raising their taxes, and then called them brainwashed and claimed that they didn't care about mental health.
It's a shame that people are so brainwashed, hoodwinked, and led astray that they will sit here and say, oh, I'm glad we voted down. That's a shame. I feel bad for you. You should be ashamed that you are sitting here commending something that we need for our Black and brown communities.
She is being accused of improperly firing 3 employees who refused direct orders to withhold permits to Dolton residents and business owners who did not donate to her campaign. She demanded dirt on all township employees, and then when that employee refused to comply, since sharing that information would violate employee privacy rights, that employee was demoted and then locked out of the township building. She has even put a woman on unpaid leave and eventually terminated her because she said she was sexually assaulted during one of Tiffany's nonsense business trips. Tiffany says that people attack her because she's young, because she's Black, and because she's a woman.
This is not attacking you as a Black woman. I've always been held accountable for my performance, my results, and I expect the same of you. That's it, that's all.
Regardless of the narrative that she wants to paint on her social media, the allegations that she's accused of are serious and need to be dealt with seriously. Tiffany Henyard is either very ignorant and naive with a terrible sense of judgment, or she's a master manipulator whose objective is to scam the government and as many people as she can to enrich herself and to live a glorified boss chick lifestyle. Either way, we need to do a better job of selecting our political leaders. Tiffany Henyard is a great example of why we need to make sure that we take our time and really vet the people that we select to be our political leaders. It's something that we see time and time again, right? A charismatic leader will show up, they say a couple of fancy words, and all of a sudden, you're putty in their hands. Until we're able to actually logically think for 2 seconds, to slow down, and to really vet the people who are trying to be in these different positions, we're going to continue to fall into these same traps. In addition to this, Tiffany also presents another issue that we have, and that is the issue of representation. Too many times today, we focus predominantly on a person's characteristics instead of the actual content of their character.
I was hoping we could get somebody that was a little bit younger for the role. I felt it was time that we, maybe possibly, and I mean, I wasn't like honed in on that, but a woman. I just thought that would be somebody, that was a little bit younger, a woman. So that's kind of where I was. I'll be honest, I really didn't know at that time a whole lot of the, that there was already some controversy and things like that, a little bit that was going on in Dolton. Sure. She went straight to Frank's office and sat in the chair and she just kept basically yelling, what are they going to think now? What are they going to say now? Speaking of the Dolton trustees, because I guess, like I said, there was already a rift and I didn't know that. So I'm thinking I'm like, oh my God, what did I do? And then so I went to Keith on the side and I said, what is she talking about? I said, is the board against her in Dolton? And he said, yeah. And I said, who? He's like, everybody. And he was like proud of it. And at that time, I mean, I already was like, what did I do?
Although I admire the fighting spirit of the residents of both Dolton and Thornton, I don't feel sorry for them. At the end of the day, they voted for her, either directly or indirectly. And everyone has to reap what they sow. I've linked our sources in the description. The question I have for you is, do we have the ability to stop people like this from assuming positions of power? You tell us in the comment section below. Thanks for watching. Hope you are enjoying our content. Make sure to visit our community page to vote for future episodes.
Let us know your thoughts in the comments. And of course, like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell.